Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just want to make sure everything's coming across okay before we dive in. The training lasts about an hour and a half, give or take. We do record the training, so you can always come back if you can't stay for the whole time. And we're here every Tuesday, basically, at 10 a.m. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I go over it, but it is 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and dive in. On the screen here, you see my Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. To get logged in, we need three pieces of information. The first is your username. That's your email address. It should be in all lowercase. Your password, which should be case sensitive. And then your account name, organization name, right? Whatever name you use to sign up with us. Now, if you don't have your email, you lost it, can't remember your password, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, is the Forgot Your Info link, and you can click on that. It flips the box around, excuse me. You still need your email address, right? And then one of the two in the following boxes. So either the account name or a phone number that's on the account, right? And that should be one of your customer-facing phone numbers. Then click on the Reset Password bar here. That will trigger an email to you. And in the body of that email will be a link to your user account page to let you change your password. Right? Once you've done that, the system logs you out. If you try to navigate away from that user account page, the system will also log you out. But then you come back here and enter in that password. You also have the option here to click on Remember Me. And then you click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I get logged in here, I'm getting taken right to my dashboard account or dashboard page, excuse me. Now, if it's your first time logging in, you're going to be taken to your user account page. You can always get to your user account page by clicking on your name, right? Look up towards top center, just to the right. Click on your name. It's a big pop-up. So main thing people change is their password here. You can also change your date and time and time zone. As an admin over here on the left, I can also access the account settings, right? So I can update the technical contact, etc. The account name here you can't change. So if you want to change that, you want to email our billing team. That's billing at virtualpbx.com. They need to make sure everything's linked up appropriately on their side. Over here on the left, we also have add-ons. This is new, and this will in the future be populated with additional features going forward. Right now, the only feature available is the text forward feature, which has already been activated on this account. Oh, it looks like it might have been deactivated at some point. It is possible that an add-on could increase your bill. So if you're not sure, you'd want to double check with our account services team, because I don't believe it gives you any kind of warning message. Over here on the left is the billing portal. All right, you can click on this link here that takes you to actual billing portal. This is where a billing contact would want to go to update credit card information or even view previous invoices. And then you also have the option to cancel account. So any system admin can cancel your account. You don't have to go through us, but just be aware that of who you've given system admin access to. When you're done here, go ahead and click the close box. Just as a heads up, that first time you sign in, you'll get pop-up boxes on that user account page where we just were. You'll get them here on the dashboard page that I'm at now, also on the groups and users tabs. So let's give a little bit of a layout here. So towards the top, right, I have VirtualPBX, my name, where I click on to get to my user account page. Most of us to the right of your name, you have a D&D toggle, right, for Do Not Disturb. And since it's white, that tells me this is active, right? So if I click on it again, it'll turn it mostly gray, black, and now it's off, right? So Do Not Disturb, right? If it's on, I'm not taking calls, right? And now that it's off, I can now get calls, right? So if I turn this back on, for instance, someone calls into my system and dials my extension number, they're going right to voicemail. I'm not going to ring my devices. Now, if I get assigned to the call center, right, one of the ACD queues, which is an upgrade feature, the D&D toggle is removed, right, because those two features do not work well together. All right, next up, I have the little phone icon here. This opens a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. Has a login page which uses your Dash login information, but you have to have had added a web phone to your user in order to actually log into that page. But once you have added that as a device, which we'll be getting to later, this allows you to log into that web page on Chrome or Firefox on a computer and make and receive calls directly from the browser. Right? So it's a kind of VoIP device. And in case I forget later, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. It just means use your internet connection to make and receive calls. The little chat bubble here, this opens a new tab, takes you to virtualtext.app. This is what we use for texting, right? SMS. Now, it's a feature that you do have to have enabled on your users and on the account, actually. So if you just signed up with us, you're actually going to want to talk to our account services team. They need to talk to you about this feature, as well as talk to you about SMS registration. If you look in the show notes, there's a link there for our business SMS webinar series that we had a couple months ago. And the first one there is about registration. Little question mark icon. This opens up the chat bubble to talk to our support team so they can walk you through a particular feature or guide. Little 3 horizontal line icon is the menu icon. So this takes you to the various Dash sections. The majority of our training, is going to be here on the dashboard, right? That's the meat of the training, but we'll touch on some of these other subjects. And then the arrow here to the right, that is the logout button. Now, if we go over to the left, so it says VirtualPBX and it has my dashboard. These are the other sections of my dashboard. So main number, that's where you set up your main number. Auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, but allows you to have secondary auto attendance, which we'll get into. Devices shows all your devices. Greetings shows all your media files, right? Main greetings, voicemail files, etc. Groups are departments, user groups, hunt groups. Numbers shows your phone numbers. Users are all your staff. Voicemail boxes, the text forward feature, which is an add-on, call logs, and feature codes. Now here in the middle, where it says VPBX New Hire Sandbox, right? To the right, I have caller ID, hours, and what is that? Oh, sorry. Caller ID, hold music, and hours. We'll get into those in just a little bit. In the middle here, total users. I have 8 users on my account, right? So these are people who make and receive calls. Generally speaking, most of our plans, the more users you have, the higher your bill, right? Per user basis. Then we've got total devices. I have 21 total devices on my account. These are just general bucket types here. So first up is soft phone, software application. Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app, includes anyone else's soft phone apps that you might be using. Oh, I'm sorry, that was soft phone. That was the second one. The first one is cell phone. Now, they keep changing the order on me. All right, so you can add cell phone or landline numbers as devices on your account. So we can send calls to these devices. They'll ring. You can answer the call. Just bear in mind that when we send a call to a cell phone or landline number, you're not going to be able to transfer that call anywhere else, right? That's the end point. All right. Third is web phone, Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Used to be a device on your staff or on a user, typically. The SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? So a physical device, typically connected via Ethernet cable to your router to get to the internet to make and receive calls. So VoIP, right? General term, right? VoIP phone covers a broad spectrum of devices. SIP is a subtype. So when you're shopping for phones, you want to make sure it's SIP compliant or compatible. And we'll go over some of those manufacturers that have those. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have 2 of them, and that means I have turned off two of my devices on the account. That just means I'm temporarily not using them for whatever reasons. Next up, total numbers. I have 15 phone numbers on this account. Now, every account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? Typically, you get one main number, and I forget what the breakdown is after that. Sorry, sales, not my thing. Uh, so if you just signed up, check the pricing page. It's going to have that information there, uh, and then what the monthly overage is per phone number. If you go over your allotment, over here, next up we got a breakdown, right? So first I have assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers, I'm using them, right? Someone can dial these numbers and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Spare number counts towards my allotment of numbers, so I could be being billed for the ones I'm not using. And that's just it. A spare number is a number I'm not currently using. I could have been using it. I could have just unassigned it from something, right? I could have, like, it could have been a main number. I unassigned it. Now it's a spare number. Likewise, it was a number associated with a user. I got rid of that user, right? Maybe they left because they got a different job offer. They wanted, like, hey, I'm going to be an actor now, and boom, left. All right. Down here, I have the USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID, any local US number, right? So a number in Los Gatos, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Grapevine, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in getting one, you want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if it's possible and if there are additional requirements. Right? Those requirements come from the country in question. Conference bridges. I have 3, and that means I've enabled the conference feature on 3 of my users, right? So these are people who host or moderate a conference. Going up here towards the right, main number box, these 3 main numbers here, they all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location on my system. They're all going to have like the same main greeting, for example. Right. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you wish. But they're all going to the same set of conference room. And this is something everyone would dial to join a conference, right? Staff members, customers, vendors. Then we have the fax box number. You can have one main fax box number, excuse me. And this is your inbound fax number. This also allows you to set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing if you wish to make use of that. All right, then we've got the company directory, and there's 2 download links. Oops. You have softphone and CSV. So CSV just downloads a spreadsheet file. So use your favorite spreadsheet program to look at it. It's going to list your staff members, their names, their extension numbers, their devices, I believe also their email addresses. The softphone version is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application. Right? So if you're using our softphone app on a Mac or Windows PC, download this file, upload it to your VirtualPBX softphone on your computer. This allows you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX softphones on your account. Right? So if everyone's just using the VirtualPBX softphone, right, that's your primary device for everybody, or only device for everybody, this allows you to see their status. I can look at my softphone and I can see, oh, my colleague Mike is on a phone and is on a call, right? I can see that and I can say, okay, I need to talk to him about this other customer. I have to wait till he's done. All right, next up, we have VirtualPBX Store. This opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx. This is where you would want to order like a VoIP phone. And there's also some network equipment there as well. And then we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used in a couple things. The first, it's one of the 3 pieces of information you need to program or provision a third-party softphone, right? So if you're using someone else's softphone app, this is one of the pieces of information you need to make that work. The other thing it's used for is part of the outbound faxing process. So once you have your fax box set up, which we'll get into in a little bit, Uh, Basically, you send a fax by email, right? So you create an email like you normally do, right? Using the email address you use for your login. In the to field, plus sign, number one, area code and phone number, little at symbol, and then your account realm. You then just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file. So the system looks at the to field, the from field, the attachment. It does not look at the subject line. It does not look at the body of the email, right? So anything you type there doesn't get transmitted. So if you want a fax cover sheet, you need to include it as part of your PDF or TIFF. Only one attachment per email to send a fax out. All right, up here, caller ID. If we click on this, opens up a big box. This pull down will let you select any of your main numbers, right? So I have 3 numbers over there, so I can select any one of those 3. Whichever one I select becomes my default number. For instance, if I added a VoIP phone, right? So like I added a VirtualPBX soft phone, and I then make an outbound call from that soft phone app, by default, my outbound call ID is this 512 number I have selected here. The company caller ID name field, this is optional. In the box to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters that you want associated with your phone number. Now, the 15 characters, that counts spaces and special characters. So it's somewhat limited. That's, as far as I know, that's an industry restriction. Then down here, you have the company emergency information, or E911. Wants a North American address. Right. So basically it's if you pick up your VoIP phones and dial 911, this is the default address that gets sent to emergency services. Now, every phone number can have its own E911 address, and then you can assign a particular phone number to a specific VoIP phone, right? So that way, when you have remote staff, the correct address can be sent to emergency services. For our Canadian customers, in the zip code, that is where you would put your postal code. And in the state section here, that is where you would put your 2-character province abbreviation. Now, once you click on Save Changes, if you've entered information in the caller ID name field, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them up to 3 business days to update their servers. Excuse me. Now, one thing to know, whenever you make an outbound call, no matter what kind of device you use, that call goes through several carriers before it reaches the final destination, right? So if you pick up your, say, an AT&T cell phone, and you call, your mother across the country who's on a Verizon cell phone, it doesn't go from AT&T into Verizon directly, right? There's other carriers in between. And that's where that CNAME information can get lost, right? If one of those carriers doesn't support it, that feature, it doesn't make it through. Now, we can only control what we send out, right? What the other receiving carrier shows on the phones, right, on the displays on their phones, that on their network, we can't control that. That's the receiving carrier's responsibility. So 3 things can happen when you make a call out into the world. That receiving carrier, right, they can pass through all the information. Typically, everyone's happy. They can see that information, and take the number, say, we're not going to send the name information that you're sending. We're going to look up that number in our own database, which we may or may not have access to, and use that information instead. And then the third, and probably most common, because the cell phone carriers do this, is they get the information and they only send the number through. They don't send any kind of name information through. Right? Like my cell phone carrier, if I want the name information to show up on calls to my cell phone, they want $10 a month. And it's usually ranges between that $5 to $10 range from what I've checked on. All right, hold music. You can upload your own hold music files. Just for this particular feature, what this means is when a call has reached one of your staff members, right? They've answered the call on their VoIP phone, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. This is the media file that will play. Now, excuse me, you can upload your own file System will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. To give you a longer duration file, I recommend that you make sure your call or your hold music, is recorded in mono, not in stereo. Right? Most times, like if you record something on the computer or you find it on the web, it's probably already in stereo, so you might have to split it down into mono. But find the file on your computer or device, click the up arrow icon. Once I finish uploading, click on Save Changes. This pull down, right, will have any of your media files that are already on the account, including this default file that we put in for you. So just be aware of that. Now, ours is part of main number. It's hard to set up your main number unless you already have users and groups. So I'm going to go to users and then groups, and then we'll go back to the main number. So users here on the left, right? These are all your staff people on the account. The people with the blue little suit icon, those are your system admins. So they can make all the changes we're talking about here. Little gray person icon is your standard user. Now, if you need to remove somebody, right, you can click on their name here. And right down here is your option to delete the user. You have these options. So you can remove their devices, you can remove their conferences. Now, because this is a test account, I know it's okay for me to remove devices, but for you, you may not want to check the devices because you might want to reuse, like if you have they have a Yale phone on their desk, you're like, oh, we can just reassign that to somebody else. I can do this. And then you need to click users again for it to update and show that I removed Michael. Now up here at the top, add user. This is how you add new people. First up, first name and last name. The system wants some sort of text. All right, over here, email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse email addresses. And this is how the system communicates with your staff, right? This is where the voicemail notifications get sent to, as well as password resets. All right, password, you give them a password, and then the main extension number, You can type in whatever extension number you want to give someone. You don't have to follow what the system suggests. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user and ties that voicemail directly to this user. Right, so like after you create this user, you add a VoIP phone to them. They can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98. That logs them directly into this voicemail box you just created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a PIN number for their voicemail box, as well as creating their voicemail box greeting. All right, so then they're all set up. Here's your option to include them in the user directory. You can always change this later. One thing to be aware of is that to fully be in the user directory, your users also need to record their names to their voicemail boxes. So that's one of the personal settings in the voicemail box. Right. Send emails to an alternate address. So if you want like those password reset emails and those voicemail notification emails, basically any email the system would send to the user to go to a different email address, you click on this box here and enter that different email address in this box. And this is something you can change later. Right, so if it's like a temporary, like someone's going to be out of the office, you can do that temporarily and then back to normal. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I personally recommend check marking this, but some people don't. When you're done, click on create user if you only need to add one person. If you have to add multiple, create user and add another. Basically just brings the box back up. All right, once a user is added, you can always click on their name. Right here, you can change their name. Then you can change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address or their password. Oh, and then you also have the option here to send the password reset email. You can change their voicemail box PIN number here, just enter 4 digits, then click on Save Changes. Here's that option to send to an alternate address, right? So I can turn this off, and then I would need to click Save Changes. And here's being in the user directory or not. Over here to the right, this little person, the little person icon here, this is where you change a user into an admin on the pull down, or an admin back down to a user. Here we have the little clock icon. This allows you to set the time zone for the user, right? So their voicemail timestamps are correct. The little flag icon, this is the displayed language of these web pages for the user. You have English, French, German, and Russian. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. This is plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone, generally speaking. If someone is only using a cell phone, you would want to change this to 30 seconds, possibly longer. All right. In terms of how calls route, right? When a call gets sent to a landline phone number, right? That telecom company goes, oh, we know exactly where that phone number is. They send the call right to it. Right? The route's already in place. Right? When a call gets sent out to a cell phone number, right? That cell phone telecom has to find the phone first. That says, oh, they're here. Then they send the call through, right? They have to find the correct route or the shortest route to get to that cell phone. Now, the person receiving it never noticed that differences, but a PBX system will. And that it basically just takes a little bit longer to send a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline. All right, extension number box. You can choose to have users have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. And then here, you've got the phone number box. So users can have their own phone numbers. If you assign a phone number anywhere other than as a main number or as an auto attendant number, it will not have hours of operation, right? So any phone number you add to a user or to a group for that matter is going to be available or 24/7, right? It's going to take calls all day. When it comes to adding numbers anywhere, you typically have an option here of adding from spare numbers or buying numbers. Adding from spare means you're using a number you're not currently using, right? Or reusing a number, right? So if you unassigned a number from somebody, or like the user I deleted had a number on their user. So if I click here and add from spare, one of those numbers is probably the one he had. And actually, I'm pretty sure it was this one here. So I would click on the check mark in front of it, click on add selected, and then save changes. So now this user has 2 phone numbers that people can dial to reach them. And this little icon here, a little page icon, lets you know that there's multiple numbers here. By numbers, you have your options of local or toll-free. Toll-free, right? US, Canada toll-free. Choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You'll get a list of numbers. Now, technically, you're competing with other people for these numbers in real time. There's not that many people buying numbers at any given time, so usually it's not a concern. But I want to point out that just by clicking add numbers, right, I haven't done anything. I haven't reserved that number. It's not mine yet. Right. Now I can keep adding more numbers of this type to this user if I want to. I can keep scrolling down to see more. Right. I see I have one in the cart. I have the number here. I click the trash icon to remove it, or I can click on buy numbers. So once I click on buy numbers, now I'm actually adding it to my account. Right. So now I'm claiming it. So now it's here. Now, while it shows up here, until I click Save Changes, it doesn't stay here, right? So I need to make sure I click Save Changes. If I don't click Save Changes, it just adds it as a spare number. Oops, wrong box. All right, local, you need to know the area code you want to work with. Now, for those of you in large metropolitan areas, you may want to know the overlays for your area code, right? Or the nearby area codes, depending on what your population density is, right? Because any area code, including the toll-free prefixes for that matter, you can get this message, which is basically saying there's no readily available phone numbers in that area code. All right, 310, it's in Los Angeles. Got a big population there. So there's probably overlays. And actually, there's actually several, right, nearby area codes. So use your favorite search engine. And in this case, I would do a search for area code 310 overlay. And that will tell me that is 424. All right, so that just means area code 310, 424, they have the same geographic boundaries. Right, so people, right, covers the same addresses. Literally people next door to each other. One could have 310, the other could have 424. But other than that, same process. Click add, click by numbers, make sure it gets added. And then click on save changes. Now, there's a little gear icon next to these numbers. So you can update the caller ID for each phone number. Right, so up here for the outbound caller ID name, and you can also turn on the ability to accept inbound caller ID name. Right, so that would show up on your staff members' phones. E911, right? Each phone number can have its own E911 address. Then you can assign that to a specific VoIP phone. And then prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the phone number that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. All right, so for instance, I probably should have just clicked on this one to begin with. When people dial this 0799 number, the word direct shows up on the staff member's VoIP phone on this, right? So the call rings to their VoIP phone, direct, and then that person's phone number shows up. So that way, my staff member knows, oh, they called my number directly. They didn't come through the auto attendant. And now I can unassign these extra numbers and click Save Changes. So now he's back down to 1. All right. You can add devices directly to a user. First up is SIP device. This is that hardware. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models to work with. Right? Yealink has the most. Right? Some have like half a dozen. So when you're in your system, you can see the makes and models that work. But you want to find the make and model. You need to give it a name, right? I usually say the person's name and the word phone, or its location, like warehouse phone, right? Or the MAC address. This is unique to each device. Typically, it's a sticker on the back or the bottom of the phone. If it's plugged in under its status settings, you can find it there, or sometimes basic settings. Then you would click on Create Device, right? And then Save Changes. So that way it would show up right here. Then you would want to click on the device again. Click on Advanced and select Miscellaneous. Where it says Allow Reprovision, you want to click Unlock. Right. Then Save Changes. You may need to click Save Changes here as well. That tells the system, hey, we're going to make use of this phone. Now, then you need to log into the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and basically tell the phone, hey, go to this website and get your config file. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to support.virtualpbx.com, right, our support pages, and do a search for auto provisioning. That's going to show the screenshots for these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, and in a couple of cases, other settings to double check. Once you go through that, the phone, right, so you put in the URL, you typically put like update or save or confirm, and then tell the phone to auto provision. It should reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device on your system. All right, so next up is cell phone. All right, so you need to give it a name and then you need to put the number, right? +1, area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. If you click on this one here, we'll see it here, right? So I gave it a name and then here, right? +1 area code and number. Then you would click on create changes, etc. I'm going to go over here to advanced options. This is the default setup for a new cell phone or landline on the account, right? So call comes in, rings to the cell phone, right? I hear it ring, I pick up. The first thing I hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. I need to press 1 to make sure I accept that call, right? I'm telling the system, yes, I'm here. Yes, I want this call. It then comes through to me. So that's an audio way for me to know, oh, this is a work call. All right, then I handle the call. Now, let's say if you contract out to an automated answering service. So they said, hey, for your after hours calls, just send all your calls to this phone number and we'll handle the call. You would come into your system, you would add that phone number, right, who you're forwarding to, as a cell phone or landline. But what you would want to do if you're forwarding to like an automated answering service, especially, right here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here. So that way, when we send a call to that phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right? There's no message about, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. We're saying, hey, pick up, connect. Now, if this is your cell phone, what can happen is, with this setting on, right, your cell phone voicemail can pick up. Still a pickup tone. So that inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that. Some people definitely do not. This other setting here that this also comes up is keep a regional caller ID. So customer Mary calls in, reaches my cell phone. So on my cell phone's display, I see customer Mary's phone number. I don't recognize it. And if I've been getting hit by robo-dialers or telemarketer, etc., I may let the call go to voicemail, which means I may or may not be able to get it, help the customer / make the sale. If I uncheck this, right, click on Save Changes, then instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number when calls come to my cell phone, I see my main number. If we go back to the dashboard page, right, whatever number you selected up here, that's what shows up on my cell phone's display. So that's a visual way to know, oh, this was a work call, let me take it, versus my brother calling me. All right, next up we have soft phone. So first, whenever you add a soft phone or a web phone on your account, you're gonna always get this message. It's basically, please be aware of wireless VoIP technology. So if you dial 911 from your soft phone or web phone, please make sure you're at the location that is normally associated with you. So please read that at least once. So here, the system will always default to using a third-party soft phone, which means you're using someone else's application. You need to give it a name. You would copy the SIP username, right? Click on the SIP password and copy this. Please don't change it. And then here's your account realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone application. Now, if you want to use our app, then down here, right, below where it says view configuration information, it says use third-party application. You can click on that, right? It's a toggle. So now it says use VirtualPBX application. You still need to give it a name, but then you would click on create device and then click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, the user gets an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It includes the login information that they need for that soft phone app, as well as download links, right? So a new user, you can have 2 pieces of login information relatively quickly, right? Once after they get used or added, and then a second time after you add a VirtualPBX soft phone to them, right? They'll have 2 different sets of login. Now, if we contrast that with the web phone, right, you still get that warning message, but here you only need to give it a name, click on create device, and save changes. Once you do that, Dante here, he can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his dash login information, and log in as long as he's using Chrome or Firefox. All right, so next up we have user features. First up, caller ID number. Up here is where you click to enable it. This is if you want this user's outbound caller ID to be different than their main number or your main number. Right, you would click to enable, and then you select the phone number that's on this user. Click on Save Changes. So now, whenever I make an outbound call here, my outbound call ID is this 424 phone number, not the 525, not the 512 number that's on my main number. Voicemail box. This is the default settings, right? It's enabled. We attach voicemails to email. So what this means is someone leaves a voicemail for me, right? I get an email notification. Hey, you have a new voicemail. In the body of the email, date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension number or voicemail box number they went to, and then there'll be an MP3 attachment. All right, so I can just click on it on my computer and listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and can't accept any more. So for most users, that's not that big a deal because most people tend to check their voicemails and get rid of them. Now, so there's three ways to listen to the messages, right? The first is via that email, but that's not a way to manage it, right? That's the only way to listen to it. To manage, two options. One, you can always call in to your system, right? Especially if it goes to a main greeting, hit star 97 and log into your voicemail box over the phone. Right, then you can listen to your messages. You'll get the option to delete. From a VoIP phone, right, star 98 logs you directly in. The other way for a user to manage their voicemail messages is up here under the menu and user portal. Your standard users, right, your non-admins, when they log into the website, they get automatically taken to their user portal, and it starts you off on your voicemail tab. Right, so you see your new messages, the date, the time. Here's your option to play back. Here's your option to download. Put a check mark here. That lets you change the status. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices, and this allows you as an admin to set up how those devices are going to ring. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if the user is part of a ring group, which we're going to get into next, or after we're done with these features, the calls from the group will ignore the follow me settings on the user. Right? It's going to so if this user is in a group, it's going to ignore the follow me. Right? So all three devices would ring. But for their other calls, first up, you have to decide what phones are going to ring, right? So uncheck the box next to devices you want to make use of. Then you have this green bar here just to the right of the device name. You click and drag it to the right to give it a ring time. Now up here along the top, these are timestamps. It defaults to 120 seconds, right? You can change it to whatever you want. Then you can also click distribute, and that will equalize the call out between the two devices. Right, so it's always going to ring my soft phone here and then my web phone. If I want to switch the order, I need to click and drag and then click distribute. So now it's the web phone first. Right, now this is something only admins can change. Now, if my user tells me, hey, I'm going to be off site for part of the day, can you have calls also make sure to ring my cell phone? Uncheck, click distribute. Right, so then I can ring an order. You can also do some overlap, right? So that way that caller doesn't have to wait in case they are on the off-site. And then any changes you may click on Save Changes. Now, if you leave Follow Me disabled on a user with multiple devices, that means basically every call they get, all of their devices ring. Right? So in that kind of scenario, for instance, my user wouldn't have to tell me, hey, I'm going to be on the offsite, make sure my cell phone's part of my mix, because it already is. Right. Fax box, you can have users have their own fax box if you want to. When you click enable, you'll be given an option. Do you want to use a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a new extension number? I recommend making use of a phone number. It gives them the most versatility. If you assign a new extension number to their fax box, they can receive faxes. They'll never be able to send a fax out because the system will try to use that extension number as the outbound caller ID, and that will fail. And even then, you potentially limit who can send them a fax, right? Because at least some of the electronic fax services I have dealt with, they don't have a provision to add an extension number. They just say, hey, enter a phone number and click send. So that is something to be aware of. Conference Bridge. Right here is where you enable a user to be able to host or moderate a conference. And then you do need to give them a PIN number, but they can change that on the user portal. And the enable video conferencing, that's for your staff, right? So anyone within your account would be able to make use of it, but anyone calling in from outside would not. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own, right? They can do that under the user portal. They can do that directly on the VoIP phones, right? And obviously, if they already have a cell phone as part of their normal mix, they don't need call forwarding anyway. But if you have just someone who's using just a VoIP phone, so then you could have off, on, or failover mode. Failover mode is for that VoIP phone user, where if their VoIP phone goes offline, then you can send callers to a specific phone number. Right, saying, hey, their VoIP phone goes offline, send the call directly to their cell phone. Right, so that way, if they didn't already know that their VoIP phone's offline, right, that would give them a clue, but they can still, help the customer / not miss a call. Right, customized call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this, and basically this setting is allow you to record calls on your system. Once you enable it, you need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record. Right, so inbound internal is a coworker call, right? Some other Dash user called me. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Right, outbound internal, I called a coworker back. Right, outbound external, I called customer Mary back. And we normally see something like this. Oops, no, sorry. Right, we either see people want the external calls or they want all of the calls. If you're recording every call and you have heavy call volume, you would want to look at AWS integration, right? So you'd have to set up an AWS account and then talk to our services team about turning on AWS integration on your account. That allows you to link your Dash account to AWS, and that way AWS would store your call recordings. Because especially at high volumes, that is more cost effective and typically something we recommend for anyone making use of call recording. Music on hold, you can choose to have your staff members have their own hold music if you want them to. You would just click here to enable and then upload a MP3 or .wav file. Right, find it on your computer, click upload. So again, this is when they press hold on their WAV phones. So like if you want your sales staff to have one set of hold music and the rest of your staff to have something different, then you would go to your sales staff and click on music on hold. Do not disturb. This is if you want to put a user on do not disturb, i.e. they're not receiving calls. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. Right, up here you click to enable. This is for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. Right, so I come into the office on a Tuesday and I sit down at desk number 2, right? I pick up the phone at desk number 2, right? I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. It's going to ask me for my hot desk ID number. I enter that. It then tells me calls to now be sent to this device. So the rest of my workday, calls will be sent to me at desk number 2. End of my day, pick up the handset, hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, let's say it's Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. I sit down at desk number 4. Same thing. Pick up the handset, *11, hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to me at that phone. All right, next up is groups, right? Ring groups or hunt groups. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff member to the right that you want to be part of the group and click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can always click on its name again, so you could change the name if you need to. And then you also have the group calling attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to the members of the group. And to the right of it, you have a little arrow so you can increase or decrease that. And here's where you would delete a group. Otherwise, click on Save Changes. Then to the right, we have the members box. This shows the staff members you've already assigned to the group and how you're offering calls to them. So in this case, I have what's called ring all or blast ringing, right? So I'm ringing all my staff members at the same time. Whoever picks up the call gets the call, right? Now, that can lead to some confusion, right? So say David and Taylor pick up the call at the same time, right? The system has to decide who's getting that call, right? So let's say it goes to David. So Taylor just hears dead air, right? He says, "Thank you for calling," blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, "Hello," right? Because there's no one there because the call actually went to David. Now, in an office environment, probably easy for Taylor to say, "Oh, I hear David on a call." He probably grabbed it. Remote working situation, a little bit harder to check unless you have something like Slack or whatever to double check, or system admin checks the call log. Now, up here along the top, you have timestamps, right? Defaults to 120 seconds. So, and you have distribute, right? So now I can click distribute. So now calls are always going in this order, right? So Taylor always gets the call first, then David, then Dante. So call comes in, right? Taylor answers it, helping the customer. A second call comes in while he's still on that first call. The system doesn't skip him. It still offers it to him for 40 seconds before it offers it to David. So then David picks up. Third call comes in, right? David and Taylor are both on calls. That third caller has to wait 80 seconds before it's offered to Dante. So in a situation where like that, right, you might want some more overlap where you would click in the bars and slide them over to the left. Down here is where you can add more users, right? In that situation, like, hey, we're a little busy today. I need to add more people into my group, right? And I can even leave them like this, so that way they're picking up calls right away, right? Or I can click redistribute again. And that would also equalize out, so it would be slightly less hold time for that to get to that second person if I didn't want to adjust the sliders. Groups can have multiple extensions, right? This is typically used for your staff members to transfer calls to the right group. Groups can have their own phone numbers. Just like on users, if you add a number here, it's open 24/7. But you have the little gear icon here. Groups have features, just not nearly as many. First up is ring back. So call comes in, offered to your group members. When their phones ring, right, that ringing sound's piped back to your inbound caller. That's ring back. If you choose to enable this, then you can upload or use a media file instead of that ringing sound. Right, .wav, .mp3, up to 1 megabyte. Just be aware that the system will not loop the media file for you. So you want to make sure that the file that you use, it has a duration that matches or exceeds your total ring time in the group. All right, so typically you want it to be at least 2 minutes as the default. Next action, This to me is the most important feature. It's if no one answers the call, what do you want the system to do? Right? You pick a pull down. You have this pull down here. You can send it back to your main number. You can send it to another group, a specific user, a specific voicemail box, another ACD queue if you're making use of those, uh, device, etc. Typically voicemails, what's recommended. But like in terms of like overflow, right? You can have one group overflow into the next one. Just make sure that last queue or that last group doesn't go back to the first. Otherwise, the caller's ended stuck in a loop. Allow call forward. If you enable it, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. Again, if they have cell phones as part of their standard device mix, then you don't really need to make use of that feature. Caller ID prepend. This is a VoIP phone feature. This is where you enable it. You can enter either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. Right, so I usually recommend using one or the other. Right, so if I got rid of the numbers here, then the word support would show up as part of the caller ID display on my staff member's phone, so they know the kind of call they're answering. All right, so now we've got users, devices, and groups. So let's go to main number. Up here at the top, you got your main company numbers. You can always buy new ones or add your spare ones to be main numbers. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update E911 or prepend, etc. Then you have office hours strategy. 24-hour open office is the default, right? So that means you're open 24/7. But if you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of the day, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option here if to say you're closed for lunch every day that you're open. Right? Just put a check mark and then put your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time. Office holidays. First up, are you closed for holidays? If you are, over here to the right, click on Add Holiday, select single day, date range, or advanced. Selecting any one of them will create a new row. Single day, like I have here for Christmas Day. All right, you give it a name, choose the month and the date, save changes. Date range, like I have here for holiday, give it a name, start date, end date, save changes. As a precaution, we recommend against a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, just because there's no year indicator. Honestly, hasn't been a problem in quite some time. Memorial Day, this is my example for an advanced or advanced. All right, so you give it a name, you choose the month, and then this second pull down, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week. And then you click on Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So you've got these subtabs here, right? Open hours, after hours, and holidays. If I had chosen to be closed for lunch, I'd also have a lunch hours tab here in between open hours and after hours. Right? But the options to route are essentially the same. So calls come here during my open hours. I'm having them go to my virtual receptionist. This is a link that I can click on, and I get this big box. Over here on the left is my main menu. These are what people will press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. Click on Add Route to give me a new row. I have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And the second pull down, I have everything that's on my system, whether that's a user, a group, call queues if you're making use of those, voicemail box. You can have a media file. You can go to a specific device. That's up to you. We usually recommend users or groups, just that way they usually have a chance to get the voicemail. Over on the right, you have your greetings options, right? So your greetings, that's where you say thank you for calling. And then you give instructions, right? Like press 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. Text to speech, there's no charge for this. This allows you to type in a greeting that you want the system to read back. Right? So it's a computerized or robotic voice. Now, the system doesn't allow you to name this greeting. It names it for you. In this case, it'll be main open hours menu TTS. And if you create one, that's fine. It's when you have to create a second one or a third one, right? Because you come in, oh, I missed something, or it didn't sound quite right, and then you edit the existing one. Then you'll have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So something to be aware of there. You can always change the file names under the greetings manager on the left. You can upload your own file, right? .wave.mp3 up to 1 megabyte. Just click on choose file to find the file on your device and then update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. All right, the pull down here will show all your media files, main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. You can record it over the phone. When the system says pick up a phone registered on the account, it means a VoIP phone. Right, that's a security feature because it knows, oh, this phone is registered and connected to this account, so it's okay for it. If you want to use a cell phone or a landline, right, you just want to call into the system from an outside phone number, then you want to go to settings, and then where it says allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. Right, then you can call in from any number. Now, this PIN number is specific to this account and this time of day. Right, so if I call in on a Saturday and try to change my main open hours greeting, this PIN number won't work because I'm in my after hours mode. Now, and also when you record over the phone, if you already have a greeting in place, which is most accounts now, you're going to overwrite the existing recording. It'll have the same file name that's already on the system, but the content changes to you with your voice. And that's usually and I bring that up just because once the holidays come around, sometimes people run out of time and record over the phone, and then they lose their main greeting that they've been using for most of the year. Professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can have them create a greeting for you. And they have professional, like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They deliver to you via email and bill you directly via credit card. So once you have the file, you would just come back up here to upload your own file. All right, settings. Number of retries on misdial. This is how many times that inbound caller can make a mistake. Right? They get one built-in attempt, and then anything you add here is on top of that. So, all right, I have 2 here, so that means my inbound caller has 3 total attempts to get a right extension number or menu option. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, i.e. entering an extension, the second and third digits of an extension after that first one is pressed. We already covered allow outside recording. Allow dialing extensions by default, this is on, and that just means when the inbound caller enters a valid extension, the system will transfer the call to that extension number. If I turn that off, then my inbound caller can only press these menu options. And then suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if the inbound caller makes too many mistakes, then the system will play a message saying, we did not recognize your entry. It does one of 2 things at that point. It either sends them to the default action, if there is one, right? If there is not a default action, it ends the call. If you don't want that message to play, then you turn suppress on, right? So you're turning on suppression, which turns off the message of we didn't recognize your entry. And then if you don't want a default action, right, you just click X next to it. And so the reason you would not want a default actions is if you're getting a lot of robodialers and they're getting through to like leaving voicemails or something like that. Any changes you make to your main menu, your settings, or your greetings, you want to click save down here at the bottom. Save changes when you get back to the incoming call handling. All right, so for after hours, I'm using the second option, which is the live operator answer option. Right, this is designed to offer calls to a user, to a group, a queue, a device, right? Basically giving somebody or several people a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then it goes to the virtual receptionist, right? So you have a pull down here to select anything on your account, and then the virtual receptionist, right? So this is my after hours, so I'd have a different menu, likely a different greeting. Third option here, I've opted to use skip the voicemail, right? So during my holidays, I'm sending callers directly to a voicemail box. Now, this is a pull down, so I could still choose to send it to a user or to a group. I can have it go to a media file, which right, just probably saying something about the holidays. Um, Groups, queues, device, etc. But basically, you can offer a call to a person or other people, and then I still want them to end up at this voicemail box just because it is the holidays. The main conference number, you get multiple conference room numbers, right? Either buy new or add from spare. You have a custom text-to-speech greeting that you can enable and type in here. Even if you leave this disabled, if you call your conference number, the system says welcome to the conference and prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one. Once you do have a fax box number, you can edit fax box. The inbound notification, this is designed to put an email address here. And then whenever you get a fax, this person or this email address gets sent an email saying, hey, you have a new fax. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, PDF attachment. Now, what can also happen is someone can dial your fax box number, right, hear fax tones and hang up. Right? Let's say they call from their cell phone. Rose would still get an email saying you had a failed inbound fax attempt. Date, the time, phone numbers involved. Now it's possible in the body of the email that part of that phone numbers involved will include the caller ID and say wireless number. Right? That instance, that just tells you someone dialed the wrong number. You shouldn't worry about it. Now, on those failed fax attempts emails, though, if it's a phone number you recognize or that you're expecting a fax from, right, then you'd want to contact the other person. Say, hey, it didn't get through. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Email permissions, this is designed to put your company's email domain here to allow for outbound faxing, right? So anyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on the account, right? They just need that proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, and then the account realm, right? Then attach a PDF or TIFF. Right, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature. It allows you to add additional auto attendance. The two things we normally see that people do are for submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. You would create an English and Spanish auto attendant here, where those auto attendants would have greetings in the appropriate language, and the menu options would go to staff members who speak those languages. The other thing we see is sometimes for people who have multiple businesses, right? So each of those businesses have their own phone numbers and main greetings, but you have the same staff people answering calls for it. Up here, you click on Add Attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number. Right, click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, it's going to look like this, meaning it starts off as being unavailable in main menu. That means it's a standalone auto attendant, i.e. designed to be its own separate business. If you want it to be a menu option, right, or submenu option, then you would click here to say available in main menu, and then save changes. So now it could be a menu option, right? So from your virtual receptionist, you can, 0 through 9, you can have one of them go here. It could also be an option coming from your next action from a group. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? Add from spare, buy new. You can have multiple extension numbers on them if you need to. There's a little wrench icon here under settings. Right, you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This is match what we already set up under the main number, right? So your multiple businesses have to have the same hours of operation. If you don't, right? So you have one business, let's say that's 24/7, but you have another business that's not, you'd want to talk to our services team to go over your best options. Right, but in terms of the auto attendance, right, you're only going to the virtual receptionist for each time. So you'd be setting up main greetings, menu options, and the settings. All right, the device tab shows all your devices on the account. Red, unregistered. So if it's a soft phone or web phone, probably means the person hasn't logged in. All right, black means I have disabled it over here under that enable column. Green means we can send calls to it, which is typically what you want to see your VoIP phones on. If you click on the wrench icon here next to a device, under advanced audio for a physical phone, under selected codecs, you can leave it with nothing there because it will just use what's available. But typically, if you have any kind of problems, then you want to make sure that G711U and G711A are over here on the right. Restrictions you don't have to usually worry about. External caller ID, you can select any phone number on the account to be that phone's default outbound caller ID. Emergency caller ID, that's that E911, right? Any phone number that you have set up, you can select from and add it. And then whenever this phone dials 911, this is the address information that gets transmitted to emergency services. And that's typically it there. Greetings Manager shows all your media files on the account, right? So main greetings, old music files, voicemail greetings. You can add new files directly here. You're not assigning them here, but they're available from any of the pull downs. All right, you just give it a name, click on Browse to find the file, and then click on Create Greeting. All right, name, pretty self-explanatory. Source, TTS means text to speech, right? Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. The little play icon column here, you can play the greeting directly in your browser, right, to see if it's still relevant. If for some reason that doesn't play, you can always download the file and play it on your device's media player. And then you have a little wrench icon here, so you can change the name, right? Especially for those text-to-speech greetings. Instead of saying main open hours menu TTS, you can change it to something you'd recognize, or you can just get rid of a greeting because you know you no longer need it. Numbers tab starts off with numbers in use. Again, shows you where your numbers are assigned. You can do the little gear icon here for any number. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. If you buy numbers here, local or toll free, right, you're just adding them as new spare numbers. But once a number is moved to spare, that's when you can get rid of it from your account. Right, so you can click on a little box in front of the number and then click on delete up here. It says confirm. It says, okay, those were successfully removed, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. Port starts the port process. All right, you give it a name, choose local or toll free. Right, then the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill from your current carrier. Right, so porting just means moving a number from one carrier to another. So like, from AT&T to VirtualPBX. So in this case, you'd want your AT&T bill to be uploaded here. There's a form to fill out. Basically, it wants the information AT&T has on file for you. For example, right, the company name, the address, etc. It's going to ask for the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. If you're only porting the one number, that's the BTN. If you're porting multiple, then you'd have to double check with your carrier what is the billing telephone number. If you're porting a mobile or cellular phone number, you're going to need a PIN number from your current carrier. Right? It's a security feature because once the cell phone number ports to us, right, that cell phone that it's associated with will stop working as a phone, right? Because it's not a phone number anymore, right? Instead, it's going to your account. Toll-free numbers take about 1 week to port if everything is correct. Local numbers can average about 2 to 3 weeks. If there's an error, we double check. Actually, I should say, if we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo anywhere, or like in the case of an address error, we double check to make sure there isn't a second address we could possibly use. But after that, then we would communicate with you saying, hey, we're getting a rejection for this reason. You would need to check with your current carrier to find out what the correct information is to port out. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemails on the account, or voicemail boxes on the account, excuse me. Anything with an entry here under the user is a user-created voicemail box, right? So you created it with the user at the same time. But up here at the top, you can create a new voicemail box, give it a name, give it a voicemail box number, give it a PIN number, click on Create Voicemail Box. Click on the wrench icon here. So, right, the voicemail box number and the PIN number, that's what you would need to check messages over the phone or change the voicemail greeting over the phone. All right. You'd call into your main number that rings the virtual receptionist, hit star 97, for example. In this case, enter 3, and then enter the 4623 PIN number. Right? And then you could check messages or even change that voicemail greeting. Now, if we go to advanced, we can go to greeting media. This is where you would upload a file or assign an existing media file to that voicemail box. So you don't have to do it over the phone. Now, there's 2 fields, temporary and media. Right? Temporary is that out of office or temporary, message. Right? So if you have 2 things selected under media and temporary, the temporary file is the only one that plays. Right? The media file will not play again until you set temporary back to none. And that is something you can do over the phone. Recipients. So voicemail boxes, right? The voicemail box that are associated with a user, they have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But any voicemail box, you can come here and click add new recipient and then enter an email address. Keep clicking add until you're done adding email addresses, and then click on save changes. And then under advanced options, so once a voicemail box has greeting media and has a recipient, then you can click on already set up. And you'd want to double check that you have attached messages to email. And if it's a busy voicemail box, so let's say like the voicemail box I use for my support group, I probably want to do delete after notification. So that way it never gets full, no matter how busy I get. And that just means I can only ever check messages via email. So if I have problems with receiving the emails, I might lose voicemail messages, excuse me. Text forward. This is an add-on feature, so it's potentially can increase your bill. But this allows you to have phone numbers receive texts and then send those messages on. It's not for back and forth communication. Now up here, you click on add number. You choose the number on the account. You choose either an email address, right? So enter in a valid email address or a webhook, which means you would have to have the webhook feature enabled on the account. But that means you're sending it to probably some other sort of software, like Zapier, for example. And then click on create text forward. Call logs. This shows your call history on the account. You can have today, this week, this month. Wow, not too many calls. You can also go custom, so you can go back and look at a specific month. So you can choose September 1st, for instance, and filter. And so now you see I have more calls. Let's see, the green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system. Let me see if I can. So here you see a call came in. It now has 2 legs, right? This is a call coming into the system. This is the second leg is a call going from the system to the device on my user, right? So I'm saying, okay, so that call went out to this particular soft phone, but they didn't pick up, right? No answer. Typically, you want to see no clearing for most calls. That means the system, as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally. Yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. So typically, you're only going to see the 1 leg. A little fire extinguisher icon here. This creates an email for you, already addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. Please include the context, because we're not always going to recognize from the technical details why you're reporting the call. For instance, if you have an audio problem, the technical details doesn't tell us that. Now you can download each of these report or call logs. It's a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get some information out of the call logs. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go further back than that, you'll need to contact us, our support team. Our engineers can go back up to a total of 18 months, but after that, the data is no longer available. So if you need to call logs for any kind of compliance reasons, you probably want to download this every month just to be safe. Feature codes. I've talked about a couple of these. These are a way for your VoIP phone users to access direct dash features directly from their VoIP phone. Now, this information is also a page on our support pages. Right? So if you go to support.virtualpbx.com, you can do a search for feature codes, or you can also do a search for the phone commands cheat sheet, which is a one-page PDF, which has this information, but it also has a context help, which might be more useful for more people, right? Especially for your non-admins. All right, so that's the dashboard. Let's go up here to the menu icon. Next up, we have blacklists. Blacklists allow you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. Right? Click Edit Settings. Click Add to create a new list or edit an existing list. Give it a name. Block Anonymous means if a call comes in and is not presenting valid inbound caller ID, then and you turn this on, right? Then we're blocking them. They get busy tone, right? If you leave it off, then they come through. But beyond that, down here, you click on Add Number. +1 area code and phone number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add Number until you're done. And then when you are done, you want to click Save here. Up here towards the top right, click on Back to Settings. Make sure your list is on the right-hand side under Selected, right? So you might have to click and drag it. But even if it's already here on the right, make sure you click Update. Call recording, this will do one of two things depending on your setup. Normal call recording, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It just uses your dash login information, and you can see your call recordings there. If you have AWS enabled on the account, when you click on call recording, it basically mirrors your AWS settings. So you can see the call recordings there. You can view them, download them, etc. However, you can't delete them, right? You'd have to log into AWS directly in order to delete. Monitor plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your users. It doesn't matter what device they're using. In fact, you can even specify by devices, right? Who's everyone available or who's busy. It might be hard to see on YouTube. Over here on the left, you've got active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have a blue box and show who they're speaking to among your staff. And then the parking, if someone's made use of the parking feature codes, they would show, those parked calls would show up here, and the parking spot number. Reports is advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature. If you can look in the show notes, you'll see the advanced reporting demo there that covers this feature. If you're interested in it, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. Once it's enabled and like fully turned on, that's when data will start showing up. Anything previous to that point will not show up in the reports. Voicemails. This goes to your voicemail box manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account as an admin. All right, so then you can see their messages. You can download them. You can play them back. As an admin, you can move them to a different voicemail box if necessary. Otherwise, you can just change their status here. So, like, i.e., a voicemail box got full. Right? Integration AWS, this would need to be turned on, but this is where you would go to set up your AWS linkage between us and AWS. Right. The access key, secret access key, and bucket you would need to all get from AWS. Call center, it's actually an upgrade off of particular plans. These are call queues, right? ACD queues. In the show notes, you want to look at the ACD queues Pro demo. But basically, queues are an advanced version of groups, right? So when a call comes into a queue, it recognizes which queue members are already on a call. So it doesn't try to offer a call to them already. It just skips to the next available person. Your staff members in a queue, right? They can mark themselves available or unavailable, or even log themselves out of the queue. Your managers can eavesdrop in on a call, right? And whisper to your staff or even barge in if necessary. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID. So if I click edit next to this one here, so here I said, hey, I gave it a name of Vegas. I chose a 702 number on my account, Vegas area code. And I simply said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 702 number, automatically change their outbound call ID to be the 702 number. And so it looks local to whoever they're calling. Alternatively, here I said, hey, dial star 951 first. And I would have to select a number on the account. Right, so now when they dial star 951, right, the system will automatically change their phone number to be this 424 phone number. Right, so obviously a little bit easier if you use just the area code version, less thinking for your staff members. But it just depends on the kind of areas you're dealing with. All right, faxes, your fax manager, so included feature. You can get to any fax box on your account, excuse me. The inbound fax box shows your inbound faxes, right? The date, the time, phone numbers involved. You can download the file. You can also delete them, so for data storage purposes. Although the system will remove them automatically after about 30 days. All right, outbound fax tab. So here you see I have a success and a failure. If there's a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax number in some fashion. Right? You can mouse over this and this will tell you that they timed out waiting for initial connection. So what that tells me is that this was a valid phone number, but we didn't actually hear fax tones when it picked up. Right? So ring, ring, ring. Maybe a voice picked up, or like an automated system of some sort, got to a voicemail box maybe. Right? So then it's like, hey, double check the number, make sure it's legit. Email to fax logs. If you see entries here, that means we had a problem. The system had a problem processing the request. Right? So you see the email addresses involved, so you can make sure that it's from the correct domain and or in the correct format. Click the little eyeball icon here to the far right, and you see here the main reason was there was no valid attachments. That could be that there was no attachment. It could be they had something that wasn't a PDF or TIFF. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. If you look in the show notes, there's a link there for the Introduction to Zapier webinar that gives you a good quick introduction to some of what webhooks works. It's some level of programming. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done. If you click new webhook, you can basically you're filling out this form. SMS registration. This is how you would start the registration process to get your number ready for texting purposes. And the status will tell you if it's been submitted, etc. And then user portal. Every user has access to their very own user portal, right? So as an admin, I can't get to, Dante's user portal, but I can already get to almost everything else on his user anyway, right? But this is where a user would check their own voicemail box. They can see their call history, right? They can go back in time. If they have a fax box assigned to them, right, they can see their fax history. The contact list tab, this lets you show or let the user see, right, other users on the account, groups, and basically if they need to transfer a call. It's not something they're going to add to. The conference tab, this is for users that you've enabled the conference feature on. Over here on the right is where the user would update their conference PIN numbers, right? The moderator and participant PIN numbers should be different. Then they have the option, do people join muted or deafened? Do you play entry and exit tones? The plus icon here, this invites other Dash users to your conference. Locks the conference, right? Mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or kick out a specific person if necessary. Settings and devices. Right here, this is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. Just click on the box, put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, click on save. Now, if their cell phone is already an active device on their user, they don't need to make use of call forwarding, right? You can put yourself in a loop if you do that. All right, and that is everything. So I'll go back to the dashboard. I haven't seen any questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I do thank you for your time today. Again, we do record these so you can review them as you need to, or send them the link to other staff members who need to be admins. Otherwise, we'll be back here